Hello and welcome to this fourth video in which we'll be covering iterations. Make sure that you have watched the previous videos because we are going to be using concepts that were done over there. Alright? So looping or iterations is when we want to execute an action over and over again. In some cases, we might know how many times we need to do that. For example, you might be asked to come for work like 5 times a week. So you know that you have to go 5 times, no, not more, not less. Or you might be asked to come to work till the time the job gets done, right? So in this case, you're not sure yourself how many times you need to go. Maybe it will be over in 4 days. It might even extend till 7 days. So we don't know that for sure, right? So what we're going to do now is we'll basically see both these types of loops, and the loops are actually convertible. The two types of loops that we have in Python are the for loop and the while loop, and they are convertible to each other, but usually the convention is that we use while loop when we have a sentinel based condition. For example, in the case that we discussed, if let's say your work, you have to come till the time the work is not done. Alright, so it's not based on counters, it's usually based on a condition. And in the for loop, it's usually based on counter. For example, you know that you have to come for 5 days. Alright, that being said, both the loops are convertible, we can always do that. So first we will go ahead and see how do we use a while loop. Okay, so let's say we just wanted to print the first 20 odd numbers, first 20 natural numbers. Alright, so you could think of doing something like this: print 1 and then just keep printing 1 2 all the way up till 20. Now I think it becomes apparent very quickly that this is not probably the best way to go about it. It is tedious, it's time consuming, and sometimes it may not even work because we may not know how many times to actually print this, right? What if it's a variable? What if I asked you to print this x number of times? So what we need to do is have some sort of a different function where basically a print statement can be written, let's say, a multiple number of times. So for that we have loops, exactly. And yeah, so what we would need is something like, let's say, index. All right, or I'll keep a counter. The variable can be named as anything. So I'm keeping counter as 1. And you'd remember from the operators lesson that you can increment a counter by 1. All right, so you can do a counter equals counter plus 1, and that would take the counter from 1 to 2. Regardless of the current value of counter, the next value of counter will always be 1 more than it. All right, so currently we start with counter is equal to 1. Now what we need to do is we need to check while counter is less than or equal to 20, because we want to print the first 20 numbers, right? The first 20 natural numbers basically. All we want to do is print counter, right? Okay, so now if I run this, I'll basically be running into a very bad condition, but I'll still go ahead and run this, although I'll have some mercy on my laptop and stop it immediately. So I terminated it. You can see that this was printing an endless streams of 1, right? And this happens because the syntax is this: while counter is less than equal to 10 basically tells you that, okay, as long as this condition remains true, which means this boolean evaluates to true, you should go inside and execute the body of the while loop. All right, so the only difference between if and while over here, see, for example, if I do if I change that from while to if, what will happen is that the counter will be printed, and counter is 1, so we will get the output of 1, right? But this action is done exactly once. So if we want to do it multiple times, we have to use a while. But we also need a way to come out of the loop, right? We don't want to keep doing that forever. So that is why the loop variable has to be incremented. We can say counter is equal to counter plus 1. All right. This way, what will happen, you can see now counter starts at 1. Then this value 1 is printed here after checking the condition that counter is less than 20. And then we increment the counter and this will work fine. So you see it goes up till 20. The reason it stops at 20 is because when, let's say, counter was 19 and it prints out 19, all right, then counter becomes 20 and 20 is still equal to 20. So you go inside, you print the 20, and now the counter is incremented to 21, right, which is no longer less than or equal to 20. Hence the loop condition fails and we come out of the loop. All right, Now a slightly better way to do it is just using counter plus is equal to 1. All right. And this will also produce the same output. I think this is probably the more preferred way of doing it. And we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing now using a for loop. All right. So for loop in Python has a slightly different syntax from, let's say the for loop in Java or some other languages. While loop pretty much looks like the same. So what we need is we need some sort of a list, okay, some sort of a data structure which produces continuous numbers. So again, remember counter is just a variable. It's a loop variable. This could have been named to anything. So for the sake of completeness, I'll comment this out, and for the sake of uniformity, actually I'll just keep this value as counter as well. So I will say for counter in this is important, range, and then you have to put 1 comma 20 comma 1. Let me explain to you what these three values are. As you can see, the first value is start. All right. So this number 1 is basically telling you which number do you want to start at. So we want all numbers starting from 1 till which number do we want to go. Now we want to go till 20, but here's the catch: the second number or the stop is exclusive, so you need to make it 21. All right. And the third value is basically the skip or the step, which tells you in what you can see it tells you basically in what steps do you need to go. All right. So we want to go in steps of 1, which basically means that we want every number. If we did steps of 2, we would get every alternate number, so we would get 1 3 5 7 9. If we did steps of 5, we would get 1 6 11 16. All right. Since we want every consecutive number, so we should do steps of 1. And all we need is to just print out counter. So if we do this thing now, yeah, you can see that it prints the exact same output starting from 1 going up till 20. All right, and going in steps of 1. If I change this to, let's say, 2, you will see that every alternate number is now printed. All right, all the odd numbers get printed because the step size has to be 2. Now one thing that can be told in Python is that by default the step size is 1. So it's an optional parameter. If you do not pass it, it's assumed to be 1. All right. So you can see that we get the same output. Actually, even the start is optional, but by default the start is at 0. All right. So if you go from 0 all the way till 21, what you will see is that there is an additional 0 over here as well. If see, there are two ways to fix this. Either you keep it at 1 comma 21, which was working fine, or since you want 20 iterations, right? So you can go from 0 till 19, okay, and each and every time print not counter but counter plus 1. So indexing is an operation that begins with 0 in most of the programming languages including Python, which means counting begins at 0 and not at 1. All right. And there are good reasons to this, because think of them as actually the remainders when you divide a particular number by this number. Okay, so the remainders can only be 0 all the way till n minus 1, right? Look, that being said, if you want to start counting from 1, it is perfectly fine. There is actually a growing community of people who support that idea, but I think it's just okay to know as to what is the default implementation, and if you want to tweak it, then it's up to you. All right. So you can do this one as well, and this will give you the exact same output. So I hope you have understood the differences and similarities between the while loop and the for loop. And if there is any doubt, watch this video slowly and make sure that you understand this, because loops and conditions are going to be very important in the later part of this course. All right, thank you. That's it for this video. Hope you have a great day.